I call Mahi Spindra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I take pride in rising on behalf of New Zealand First to speak on this electronic monitoring of offenders legislation bill. Like most other things, Mr. Speaker, this bill is not perfect. However, it is a step in the right direction, we think, and we will provisionally at this stage support this bill, provided there is enough done to remove the anomalies and ambiguities within this piece of legislation. This bill removes barriers to the electronic monitoring of offenders released from a sentence of 2 years or less. And secondly, the offenders sentenced to intensive supervision. So what actually it means to us is that the courts will now have the ability to impose these electronic monitoring conditions on the bailees and those offenders who are released from a sentence of 2 years or less. Now, we like the intent of the bill, but we do have some reservations, Mr. Speaker, about the way the final product will be delivered and whether the intent will actually be translated into outcomes, which is to make our communities safer. While we will support this bill at this stage, we would like to have the ambiguity around administration removed and our questions answered during the select committee stages. We suspect that not enough has been said about the victims of crimes. One basic question that comes to my mind now is there a possibility that electronic monitoring will be used to free prison beds with too much of dependence on the electronic anklet, which is far from perfect? There have been instances, Mr. Speaker, where the offender has tested the monitoring agency by setting the alarm off and then measuring the response time. It has also happened that the offender in that response time, which is calculated by the offender by repeatedly testing the response of the responding agency, they have committed offenses within that response time and then gone back to the premises where they were meant to be earlier. Time and again, Mr. Speaker, it has been proved that the monitoring system is actually not foolproof. We can have all the technology and still fail. As they say, iPads and iPhones don't prevent crime. Good policemen and prison officers do. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the safety of our communities, we cannot afford loopholes and a trial and error approach. Just recently, Mr. Speaker, the offender who is alleged to have been involved in the mindless, callous murder of Ms. Blessy Gotenko was said to be on some kind of electronically monitored release conditions. While I cannot comment further on this horrendous offense, clearly in this instance, the system failed. The system failed in protecting Blessy and our family, and the system failed in keeping our communities safer. So our concern is, how far does this bill go actually in filling the holes and strengthening the related legislation, which is the Sentencing Act, the Parole Act, and the bail conditions legislation. Now, we will support this bill at the select committee stages, provided the anomalies within this piece of legislation are addressed. We will not give a blank check like the support parties have been giving to the ruling party.
I call Jackie Dean.